They didn't just ask me to move, they shoved me off my seat while everyone laughed. The woman poured her drink on my dress, calling me a nobody. Her husband recorded it for fun. I was humiliated, broken, tears streaming down my face. Then the door opened, and my husband walked in. Their laughter died instantly. What happens next will give you chills. This is a story of brutal humiliation and the most satisfying revenge you'll ever witness. If you love powerful karma stories, hit subscribe right now and stay until the very end. You won't regret it. My name is Mia, and I never thought a single night could break me and rebuild me at the same time. I've been married to Zachary Stone for 3 years now. When we met, he was just starting his business empire, and I was a simple girl from a small town working at a bookstore. We fell in love over coffee and conversations about dreams bigger than ourselves. He asked me once what I wanted from life, and I told him, just to be myself and be loved for it. He promised me that I'd never have to change. As Zachary's business grew, so did his wealth. Within 2 years, he became one of the most powerful investors in the country, but we made an agreement early on. I would stay out of the spotlight. I didn't want the attention, the fake friendships, or the judgment that comes with money. I liked my simple life, my books, my quiet mornings. Zachary respected that. He kept his business world separate from our personal life. Very few people even knew he was married. That night, everything changed. Zachary was hosting a major business gala where he planned to announce a $10 million investment in one company. It was the opportunity of a lifetime for whoever won his favor. He asked me to come, said he wanted me by his side for such an important moment. I agreed, even though I felt nervous about entering his world so publicly. I arrived at the venue alone because Zachary was handling some last-minute business calls. The place was breathtaking, crystal chandeliers, marble floors, and people dressed like they'd stepped out of fashion magazines. I wore a simple white cotton dress and my mother's pearl earrings. Nothing fancy, but it meant something to me. I found a seat at a table near the front. There were no name cards, no reserved signs, so I sat down and waited for my husband. That's when they appeared. Brandon Cole and Jessica Hartley. He was wearing a designer gray suit with a gold Rolex that caught the light with every movement. She had on a bright red silk gown that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, and she was dripping in diamonds. They walked up to my table with the kind of confidence that comes from never being told no. "Excuse me, you're in our spot," Brandon said, not even bothering to make eye contact with me. I looked around the table. There were no reserved signs anywhere. "I'm sorry, but there's no reservation cards here. There are plenty of other empty seats if you'd like." I started to say politely, but Jessica cut me off with a laugh that felt like nails on a chalkboard. "Do you even know where you are? This isn't a charity dinner, sweetheart." Her eyes scanned me from head to toe, and I could see the judgment forming. A few people at nearby tables started to notice the commotion. Some even pulled out their phones. Another man joined them, someone Brandon called Garrett, his business partner. The three of them formed a wall of designer clothes and expensive cologne in front of me. Garrett smirked and said, "Brandon, I think she's lost. Maybe she thought this was the community center?" The laughter started then. Not from everyone, but enough people that my cheeks burned with embarrassment. I stood up, trying to avoid confrontation. "I'll just move to another table. It's not a problem." "Too late for manners now, sweetheart," Jessica said, her voice loud enough for half the room to hear. Then, before I could step away, she shoved me, hard. I stumbled backward, my purse falling from my hands. The contents spilled across the floor, my phone, wallet, and a few photos of Zachary and me scattered like fallen leaves. Brandon actually kicked one of the photos aside with his expensive leather shoe. "Cleaning up your trash? Good girl," he said with a cruel smile. Garrett pulled out his phone and started recording, laughing like this was the funniest thing he'd ever seen. My hands were shaking as I knelt down to gather my things. I was trying so hard not to cry, but the humiliation was crushing. Then Jessica did something I'll never forget. She, accidentally, spilled her entire glass of red wine on my white dress. The cold liquid soaked through the fabric immediately, staining everything. "Oops, now you really can't sit at our table, you're a complete mess," she said with mock concern. The crowd around us erupted in laughter. Some people actually clapped. A few looked uncomfortable, but nobody, not a single person, stood up to help me. I was on my knees, wine dripping from my dress, tears finally breaking free and running down my face. This was supposed to be a special night. I was supposed to be supporting my husband, and instead I was being treated like garbage in front of hundreds of people. Then it got worse. A woman's voice called out from the crowd, "Mia, oh honey, what are you doing here?" I looked up and my heart sank. It was Natalie, my cousin. I hadn't seen her in years, not since she married into money and decided my family wasn't good enough for her anymore. For a moment, I felt hope. Family, someone who knew me. "Natalie, I didn't know you'd be here," I started to say, but she cut me off just like Jessica had. "Did you sneak in? Are you working here as a server or something?" Her voice was loud, performative, making sure everyone heard. Jessica's interest was suddenly piqued. "Wait, you actually know this woman?" she asked Natalie. My cousin smiled, and it wasn't kind. "She's my cousin, from the unfortunate side of the family," Natalie announced to everyone listening. I remembered then that she hadn't come to my wedding 3 years ago. She'd called Zachary a nobody, said I was wasting my life on a man with no prospects. She had no idea how wrong she'd been. Natalie turned to Brandon and Jessica, joining their little circle of cruelty. "I'm so sorry about this. She's always been a bit opportunistic, probably here trying to find a rich husband or something." I tried to speak to tell her the truth, but she rolled right over me. "Natalie, my husband is—" I attempted, but she laughed. "Husband? Oh, please, Mia. What lie did you tell to get past security?" She actually sat down at their table, joining Brandon and Jessica like they were old friends united against a common enemy. Me. My own family had just betrayed me in front of everyone. I gathered the last of my scattered belongings with trembling hands. An elderly waiter, the only kind face I'd seen all night, quietly helped me pick up the photos. He whispered so only I could hear, "Don't let them break you, miss." His kindness almost made me cry harder. I looked at one of the photos, Zachary smiling at me on our anniversary. I remembered what he always told me. "You're the strongest person I know. Never forget your worth." I made a decision right then. I wouldn't run away. I wouldn't give them that satisfaction. I moved to a corner table, head held as high as I could manage despite the tears on my face and the wine staining my dress. My fingers fumbled with my phone. I texted Zachary, "Please hurry, I need you." His response came immediately. "Almost there. I love you. Stay strong." Meanwhile, Brandon was talking loudly at his table about his company, Coltech Industries. He was trying to impress everyone around him, dropping hints about the investor he was meeting tonight. "This deal will change everything," he boasted. "We're about to become very, very wealthy." Jessica was touching up her makeup obsessively. "You better land this deal, Brandon. I didn't marry you to be average," she hissed at him. There was a desperation in their voices that I recognized now, though I couldn't have known then what it meant. Garrett leaned in and said something quietly, but I heard it anyway. "If Stone doesn't invest, we're finished." Brandon's face went pale for just a second before he composed himself. Jessica's eyes went wide. "Zachary Stone? The Zachary Stone is the investor tonight?" Brandon nodded tensely. "He's investing $10 million in one company. It has to be us. It has to." I watched them from my corner, these people who'd just destroyed me for entertainment, and realized they were about to meet my husband. The irony would have been funny if I wasn't still shaking from what they'd done. The lights dimmed suddenly. An MC walked onto the stage, and the entire room went quiet. "Ladies and gentlemen, the moment you've been waiting for. Please welcome our evening's guest of honor and investor, Mr. Zachary Stone." The music swelled. The main doors opened with dramatic flair. And there he was. My husband. Zachary walked in wearing a perfectly tailored midnight blue suit, his presence commanding every eye in the room. 2 assistants flanked him, but he didn't need them to project power. He had this calm, controlled energy that made everyone else seem small. The entire room stood up, Applause erupted from every corner. Brandon and Jessica practically sprinted to get closer to the front, desperate to be noticed. I watched Zachary's eyes scan the crowd with that cold, businesslike expression I'd seen in photos, but rarely in person. He was in his element, the powerful investor everyone wanted to impress. Then his eyes found me in the corner. Everything changed. The cold mask melted. I saw concern flash across his face, then recognition as he noticed my stained dress, my tear-streaked face, my defeated posture. Then came something else. Pure, controlled anger. He started walking, not to the stage, not to the microphone waiting for him, but directly toward me. The crowd parted in confusion. Brandon tried to intercept him, stepping into his path with an eager smile. "Mr. Stone, Brandon Cole, we spoke on the phone about Coltech Industries." Brandon extended his hand. Zachary walked past him like he didn't exist, didn't even glance his way. Brandon's hand hung in the air, his smile faltering. Zachary reached me, and his voice was so soft, so different from the powerful businessman voice everyone expected. "Who did this to you?" I couldn't hold it together anymore. The tears came flooding back. "I'm sorry. I tried to stay composed. I didn't want to embarrass you." I started, but he gently lifted my chin so I had to look at him. "You have nothing to apologize for. Ever." He removed his suit jacket and draped it over my shoulders. It was warm from his body heat and smelled like his cologne. Like home. Then he kissed my forehead, right there in front of everyone. The room went completely silent except for the sound of phone cameras clicking and recording. I heard Jessica's voice, small and terrified. "Oh no. Oh no, no, no." The realization was spreading through the room like wildfire. The woman they'd humiliated was Zachary Stone's wife. Zachary helped me to my feet, his arm protective around my shoulders. Then he turned to face the crowd, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. His voice was ice. "Someone want to explain this?" He pointed to my stained dress, to the floor where my belongings had scattered. The elderly waiter, bless him, stepped forward. "Sir, I witnessed everything. These three," he pointed to Brandon, Jessica, and Garrett. "They pushed her, mocked her, threw wine on her, and recorded it all while the crowd laughed." Zachary's jaw clenched. I felt his arm tighten around me protectively. "You three, step forward." It wasn't a request. Brandon, Jessica, and Garrett approached like children called to the principal's office. Jessica was visibly shaking. Brandon was trying to smile, to salvage something. "Mr. Stone, there's been a terrible misunderstanding," Brandon started, but Zachary cut him off. "You shoved my wife. You humiliated her in front of hundreds of people. You laughed while she cried." Each word was precise, controlled, but underneath was a fury that made everyone step back. Jessica gasped and actually backed away from us. Natalie suddenly stood up from her table, realization dawning on her face. "Zachary? Wait, you're Mia's—" Zachary's cold stare in her direction silenced her immediately. He continued, his voice carrying to every corner of the silent room. "I've spent 3 years building an empire. You want to know why? To protect her from people exactly like you." He bent down and picked up one of the scattered photos, holding it up for everyone to see. "She's the reason I have everything, my motivation, my heart, and you treated her like she was nothing." Zachary turned to his assistant. "Bring up the Coltech Industries file." A large screen descended behind the stage, and within seconds Brandon's company financials were displayed for everyone to see. Numbers in red, debt, desperation. "You needed $10 million or you'd file for bankruptcy in 60 days, Zachary stated calmly. Brandon's secret was now public knowledge. "I was going to save your company. Past tense. Was." Jessica broke down right there. "Please, we didn't know she was your wife. We'll do anything, we'll apologize, please," she begged, but Zachary wasn't finished. "You filmed her humiliation for entertainment. Let me return the favor." He nodded to his assistant again. The video that Garrett had recorded, me being shoved, wine poured on me, the crowd laughing, played on the giant screen for the entire gala to witness. People gasped. Some looked away in shame. They were seeing their own cruelty reflected back at them. "Every person who laughed tonight is now blacklisted from any of my future investments," Zachary announced. The gasps turned to protests, but he held up his hand for silence. Several business people in the crowd went pale, realizing they'd just destroyed their own futures for a few moments of cruel entertainment. Then Zachary turned to Natalie. Your family, and you betrayed her worse than strangers did." Natalie tried to stammer an apology, but Zachary wasn't interested. "Your husband's contract with Stone Industries? Consider it terminated, effective immediately." Natalie collapsed into her chair, the weight of what she'd done crashing down on her. Her husband would blame her for losing a multi-million-dollar contract. Her marriage might not survive it, but she'd made her choice when she sided with my bullies. Zachary's final announcement echoed through the stunned silence. Tonight's $10 million investment will not be going to any company here. Instead, it will go to Helping Hands Charity, an organization that supports women escaping humiliation and abuse, in my wife's name. Security appeared and began escorting Brandon, Jessica, and Garrett out. Jessica was screaming apologies. Brandon was begging, his dignity completely gone. Garrett dropped his phone trying to delete the video, but it was already too late. It had been uploaded to the big screen, saved, recorded by dozens of other phones in the room. Other guests who had laughed earlier started quietly leaving, unable to face the shame. Zachary addressed the remaining crowd one final time. "Let this be a lesson to everyone here. Treat every person as if they own your future, because they might." A few people tried to clap, tried to get back into his good graces, but Zachary ignored them all. He turned to me, his expression softening completely. "Let's go home," he said quietly. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. These were tears of relief now, not humiliation. "I knew you'd come," I whispered as we walked toward the exit together. This time my head was held high, not because of his power or his money, but because I remembered my own worth. That's what they'd tried to take from me, and that's what I'd reclaimed. As we left, I saw Brandon outside through the glass doors, his phone pressed to his ear, probably calling bankruptcy lawyers. Jessica was already walking away from him, always looking for the next wealthy target. Garrett sat on the curb, his whole world collapsed. And Natalie was crying, her husband screaming at her about the lost contract. That night changed everything. Brandon's company did collapse within the month, exactly as Zachary had predicted. Jessica left him and searched for another wealthy man, but word had spread. Nobody wanted her. Natalie's husband did divorce her, and she reached out to apologize months later. I didn't respond. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. But here's what I learned, what I want you to understand. I didn't feel joy watching them suffer. I felt sad that it took my husband's power for them to see my worth. Sad that respect is something people only give when they fear consequences. True strength isn't in revenge, it's in knowing your value even when the whole world is laughing at you. Zachary didn't make me worthy. I already was. He just made sure the world knew it. And maybe that's what we all need sometimes, someone who sees us when we're covered in wine and tears and shame and loves us anyway. Not despite our vulnerable moments, but through them. So remember this, never judge someone by their appearance, their clothes, their quiet presence in the corner. You never know who they really are, what battles they're fighting, or whose protection they carry. Treat everyone with dignity, not because of what they can do for you, but because it's simply the right thing to do, and that is how karma destroys those who destroy others. If this story gave you chills, smash that like button right now. Share this with someone who needs to remember their worth. Comment below. What would you have done in Mia's position? Subscribe to hear more powerful stories of justice and revenge. Remember, never judge someone by their appearance. You never know who they really are. Until next time, stay humble, stay powerful, and never let anyone dim your light.